know, Bob.
This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. By the end of today's show, I'm going to regret standing underneath the helicopter water drop. 50 years ago, Maine voters approved creation of the Allagash Wilderness Waterway. In fact, more than two-thirds of Mainers voted for it. In a dedication ceremony on July 19, 1970, it was Senator Ed Muskie who proclaimed the inclusion of the Allagash into the National Park Service's Wild and Scenic River System, the first state-administered wild river in the U.S. 2 weeks ago, a big celebration was held at Churchill Dam on the Allagash. Hundreds of people made it into the woods, and I was one of them. Today's show is a sampling of some of the activities that day. If any of this inspires you to join the fun, there's another celebration coming up in the town of Allagash on August 20th. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Doors Equipment, Bar Harbor Whale Watch, Napa Auto Parts, EBS, and a Supercuts location near you. Now then, with so many people expected to come, I decided I'd better get up to the river early. I went up Friday night, and I have to admit I slept in the back of my car again. So we start this show Friday night about 14 hours before the party begins. It's an all-day celebration on Saturday, but I'm up here on Friday night because this place is going to be a zoo tomorrow, and I want to be here to get a good seat. I'm at Churchill Depot, right at Churchill Dam. This is in the Allagash. Essentially, as you go north from Chamberlain Lake on the headwaters of the Allagash, you get down to several lakes. The last one's Churchill Lake. Before you go past this dam and empty into the main part of the Allagash River, you hit some more lakes along the way, but these are much smaller. And so off you go. Once you get to this, you're really into the whitewater for a good part of the river after this. Churchill Depot was the king of logging operations during the 1920s and 30s. LaCroix, I think it was. At one time, there were 20 families living in Churchill. And during these years, they had two schools, one in French, one in English. They had a blacksmith shop, they had a Lombard shed, a large horse barn. They had offices and other buildings at this location. There have been several dams here. I think the first was built somewhere before the Civil War. 1846 is what comes to mind. The Timber Crib Dam that was built in 1925 stayed there a long time, and it provided the water for the log drives and actually generated a little bit of electricity for the settlement at Churchill Depot. And then in 1997, they had to replace it with a concrete dam, and they also enhanced the fisheries management around it with a fish ladder so that it did not interrupt the flow of fish going up and down the Allagash. Here I am in the north end of Churchill Lake, right on top of the dam, looking down Churchill Lake. Don't see any loons yet, but a couple of ospreys have been flying by. You know, it really is a matter of perception. You ask a local Mainer if this part of Maine is a wilderness, and they'll say, of course not, it's a working industrial forest, and you can't argue with that, because I drove in here in my Subaru on a road that could handle 45-mile-an-hour traffic. So you can't exactly call that a wilderness. But if you were a flatlander, you'd look at all this and say, oh my God, there's nothing around for miles and miles. This is the heart of the wilderness. So it's all a matter of perception. Several dams have actually occupied this spot that I'm standing on right now. The first one, I think, mentioned 1846. This dam that's now on it was built in 1997. And it is supposed to control river flows and make levels for recreation and fisheries management. It also serves as a bridge across the Allagash River because this road continues for quite a ways and connects up a little further with some other roads. So this is, in fact, a logging road as well. Good morning. It's Saturday, July 23rd. I did sleep in my car last night. The seats fold down, and if my air mattress hadn't leaked, it would have been a quite comfortable night. We were supposed to get some rain last night, but the whole system apparently passed just north of us, and the whole night was pleasant. Daybreak is lovely this morning. I'm once again out by the Allagash River looking up the lake, or down the lake, Churchill Lake. Many other early arrivers are stirring from their campsites. Smells like everyone is cooking bacon. Or maybe that's the beginning of the beanhole beans that'll be served up tonight. They're making enough for 400 people. Looking around, there aren't nearly that many people here, but they've got parking set up along the access roads for a mile in both directions. The first scheduled event isn't until 10 a.m., which will give people time to get to the river from nearby lakes and campsites and sporting camps and even motels in Ashland. One couple with a young son have already grabbed my attention. Allagash Guide Service is setting up. I'm heading that way now. Well, what's your name?
Brandon Lane.
All right, Brandon, where are you from?
Allagash, Maine.
All right. Now, this is Allagash Guide Service. What is it you do?
We do everything from canoe trips, outfitted trips, guided trips, shuttles. We do bear hunts, moose hunts, deer hunts. We are year-round, full-service guide service. We operate 365 days out of the year.
Year-round, though, but what do you do in January?
In January, we do shed hunts for moose. We do snowmobile trips. We do rabbit hunts, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, snowmobiling, you name it.
Sounds like that keeps you busy.
Yes, it does.
So what is it you're going to do here today at Churchill Dam?
Today we're offering shuttles down through the Chase Rapids. We're renting out canoes with a free shuttle to pick everybody up and bring them back up here.
And you're charging, what, $30?
It's $30 and you get 2 t-shirts, or $15 and you get just a canoe and 2 life jackets and 3 paddles.
How far a distance is that down to that
Right around
point?
4 miles.
That's not bad. That's a pretty good deal.
Yep, takes about an hour.
Yeah. So, shuttle service. I have never canoed the Allagash, and I really want to. It's on my bucket list, so what are you going to do for me?
It all depends. We get various drop-off points along the Allagash. You got Johnson Pond, Chamberlain Bridge, Indian Stream, Churchill, Zaskus, Round Pond, and Mishu Farm. And with the shuttle service, what we do is you drive your vehicle there, you park your vehicle, you mail us a key, we pick the vehicle up, and we bring it back to Allagash Village to our takeout point for you.
Oh, okay. You hire out people to do that, or you do it all yourself?
We got a few employees. A lot of it we do ourselves.
Yeah. Well, you know what the roads are like around here. Do you ever flatten somebody's tire doing it?
Yeah. Seems like it's an everyday occurrence.
I was on the Telos Road a couple of weeks ago and used up both my spares. I brought an extra and used them both.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we left out of Zaskus the other night, and I got 2 flats on the truck headed out.
Oh, jeez. It seems to be that kind of summer, too.
It does.
Yeah.
A lot of grading going on.
So when is the season busiest for you in terms of shuttling people around?
End of June to July, end of July.
Yeah, then it tapers off?
Yeah, it starts slowing down. It starts slowing down a little bit here and there.
Yeah. Now, does it get busy again come September? Or?
Yes, it kind of grows in spurts from year to year. It's not steady. It's nothing you can depend on.
Yeah.
So a lot of last-minute planning. People call up 2 days before and want to go out.
Yeah, but once you get into bear season, you're kind of busy with that.
Yeah, we are. I have a few drivers that do all the driving and that stuff for me throughout bear season.
Yeah. All right, so Allagash Guide Service, how would people find you?
You can check us out on our website, allagashguideservice.com. You can give us a phone call at 207-398-3418. We're on Facebook, Instagram.
Good luck. Have a great day today.
Thank you very much.
It's 8 a.m. From where I'm standing next to Allagash Guide Service, I've got the river and the dam behind me. Ahead, the Allagash Fire Department is setting up to serve food all day. The big storage building that serves as a museum is next. Then they've mowed a big field between here and the ranger's cabin, and that's filled with tents. Beyond that, I can see Allagash Superintendent Matt LaRoche setting up to greet people as they arrive. And there are t-shirts and caps and souvenirs available for sale. I'm heading that way to talk to Matt now, and it'll take me about 3 minutes to get there, so hang on. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, and it's Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. We're on the Allagash today. The Wilderness Waterway is 50 years old this year, and there's a big celebration going on at Churchill Dam. This is a long way into the woods. I came up through Millinocket, and it took 2.5 hours just to get here from there. It's 2 hours over from Ashland. We're a long way from anywhere, which is exactly what the Allagash is all about. Matt LaRoche is superintendent of the Allagash. So, Matt, the day has finally come, and the weather's better than we expected.
It's awesome here today. It's a nice little breeze and a sunny day, and we've got lots of people. Churchill Dam's turned into a little village again today.
Yeah, which I wanted to ask you about. The planning and logistics for an event like this far in the woods, can't be that easy.
No, we started planning like over a year ago, and today we've had a few snafus, if you will, and we've overcome them all so far, and we got this beautiful day, and lots of people came out. So I think it's going to be a really good day. People are going to get to celebrate the Allagash for at least this day.
Now, I've been wandering around and I haven't seen a snafu, so what did I miss?
Well, this little tarp affair that we're standing on, no, it didn't go exactly as planned, but one of my rangers stepped up and we made it work. And our music guy, we had to change that. The biggest thing that I'm disappointed in, the bateau was going to be here, but they put the bateau in the water a couple weeks ago and it leaked like a sieve. They were going to fix it, but they actually did not get it done in time, so we don't have a bateau here. But we do have a Lombard log hauler, and it's going to be fired up, I think, in about 45 minutes.
Excellent, yeah. I want to go do the bunkhouse tour, too.
Yeah, that's going to be good. Amanda Barker, she stepped right up. She's doing that tour of the boarding house for us, and that's going to be good. We got beanhole beans. They're all on the ground over there, enough to feed 400, and I think we're going to have 400 people here to eat.
Now, yeah, it's amazing to get that many people in a location this far into the woods. And I mean, it is. If you're coming up from Bangor, it's got to be about a 4.5-hour drive, and at least a half of that is over roads that normally people aren't going to drive.
Right, I had a call when I was out to town last week from a guy that I knew in Guilford, and he says, I haven't been to Churchill Dam in 30 years. He says, I want to come up. I'm 77 years old. I want to come up before. So I think a lot of people they've been here once, and they want to come back, and whatever their memory is, it really, one thing about the Allagash, it pretty much stays the same.
Yeah, that is true.
I mean, if anything, it goes more back to the wilderness than it was a few years ago.
We're just getting right down to the logistics. That field over there where everybody's camping normally isn't mowed much in the summer.
That's correct. We just let that grow up in the summer, but it's mowed today.
Yep. You got porta potties around the corner, at least 5 of them lined up. So the logistics of getting everything in here before the people even come must be tough. All these picnic tables look new.
Well, the guys pounded them together yesterday. I mean, that's our regular supply of picnic tables for our 100 campsites, and we didn't put any out this year, but we're going to put them out after the event. So we just saved them for this. Everything cost a little more to get the porta potties here than it does out to town, but we had a lot of support from the landowners around us, and everybody that I asked for donate, they came right forward.
How many people do you think are going to show up today, not realizing there was an event going on? People who just came in to paddle.
There is a few coming down the river that didn't. They know there's an event going on by now because they've talked to a few rangers, but they didn't come for it. But I didn't hear any feedback about maybe it not being
as wild
as wild here. Well, it's wild in a different way, right?
It is.
And then we have our scouts there going by. They're going to do the flag ceremony tonight.
Oh, cool!
Caribou Boy Scouts, Troop 184. So awesome.
Talk about Roland Thurlow's canoe, because that is. I was afraid to touch it.
Well, Roland Thurlow, Northwoods Canoe Company, Atkinson, Maine, and I didn't realize this before I started, but there's really 2 wooden canoe builders in the Northeast, and that's Roland Thurlow and Jerry Steinfeld, and they're both in Stelmach, not Steinfeld, and they're both in Atkinson.
Yep.
And they are the 2 biggest guys in wooden canoe building around anywhere. And Roland built us that canoe, donated it. The money, we're going to auction it off online. If you go to maine.gov/Allagash. You can link onto the site. It's called Bidding for Good, and you can bid on that canoe. The minimum bid is $3,500, but it is a really special canoe, and I hauled it up from Atkinson, and I didn't do any damage to it, so I'm pretty happy about that.
I would be scared to death. That is a showpiece. That is such quality. I would be afraid to scratch it. A pebble off somebody else's car would frighten me.
So, we hope somebody's going to use it and take it down the river, because part of that whole package is Sean and Tenny, two canoes. One's a special edition Allagash paddle. Indian Hill Trading Post gave us a couple life jackets, and Allagash Canoe Trips donated a trip down the waterway. So we'd like to see it go down the waterway. But whoever buys it can do it whatever they want.
Be on my wall above the mantle, I think. It's just too pretty to canoe with.
It is a work of art, without a doubt.
Oh, great. Good luck with the day today.
All right, thank you very much, Bob.
Once again, that's Matt LaRoche, Allagash Superintendent. Now that the crowd is flowing in, it's starting to get really noisy in other ways around here. There are some demonstrations going on today. And right near the food tent, they finally got the Lombard log hauler going. In the first half of the 20th century, Lombards were made in Waterville, and they soon proved that they could move a lot of wood. Early versions were steam, and later models like this one were gas-powered. It's big and powerful. It looks old, nothing sleek about it. The engine is huge. The bench seat is just flat wood. There's a handbrake and a gear shift, and they look like they're right out of an old movie. There's maybe one gauge in the dashboard, if you want to call it a dashboard. We will be talking to the owner in a little bit, but there's another noise moving in. The Maine Forest Service is arriving with its helicopter. Demonstrations are scheduled for this afternoon. Until then, they'll park it over by the boarding house and anybody can look in and get in. Before it leaves, they'll bring out the bucket and demonstrate how to pick up water from a lake and drop it on a fire or any other target. So I'm going to have to wait a few minutes for all this noise to die down. We'll take a break, and when Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine returns, we'll interview the blacksmith. Based on what I've seen from him so far, this is not going to be an ordinary interview. He's already told me I'll have to edit out the colorful language. This is Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8. Today's show is happening way up in the Allagash. It's the 50th anniversary of the Wilderness Waterway. July 23rd was the first of two big commemorations, and that's where I am right now, just where Churchill Lake pours through Churchill Dam and Chase Rapids begin. The second anniversary is coming up in the town of Allagash on August 20th, and it'll feature many of the same things we're seeing now and many of the same people. One of those people is Guy Landry. He's a blacksmith who lives just on the other side of the border. He's tall with a long black beard and a smile that infects all of the people who are now watching him pound some metal into shape. I've already been chatting with him during the break, so I know that this interview is not going to be boring because there's nothing boring about Guy Landry.
Bonjour les amis. Mon nom c'est Guy Landry, je vous souhaite une belle journée.
And where are you from?
Saint-François, Nouveau-Brunswick. Je représente la force Joe Bémichaud. Saint-François.
Okay.
Now I'm going to switch back over.
Good plan.
All right. The rest of the show. No, this is just so that you can put that in there to say hello to the French-speaking people. My name is Guy Landry, and I'm here representing the Joe Bémichaud Forge Museum in Saint-François, New Brunswick. The fine people here asked me to show up and do a little demonstration and explain the history of blacksmithing and the horses that were needed back in the days of the logging industry near Churchill Dam. Mm-hmm. How's that for
That's
you?
very good. So what period, I mean, blacksmithing must have changed over the years, and this must represent a certain period?
This period... Strike while the iron is hot. This is where the saying comes from, kids. The era that I'm representing is basically turn of the century to about 1930.
Mm-hmm. When you say turn of the century, you mean 1800 to 1930?
No.
1900 to 1930?
1900
okay.
is basically what I'm using because the blower that I'm using is technology that dates back to the 1850s.
Mm-hmm. What are you doing?
What am I doing?
What are you making?
Just making little repairs to certain items. We found a spike on the side of the river, bent, out of shape, completely useless. So we're straightening it out, and we might give it a nice twist, make it stronger, even better for a spike. When they make piers and pylons, it'll be good for crib work too. Mm-hmm. Keep it all together. Now, for you people on the radio, the visual part of this is it's about 16 inches long. It's a half-inch square piece of iron. I say iron and not steel because it has actual iron. This pin dates back to around, by the looks of her, somewhere between 1850 and 1880. After that, they would have been using mild steel.
Mm-hmm. Now, can you, with this get-up, do anything with steel, or are you limited to iron?
Oh, no, I can work steel.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, most of what I'm working on is steel, because iron is hard to find now. You have to look long and hard to find iron, because everything is made of mild steel. It's cheaper.
So for your heat source, is that coal or charcoal, or what do you use?
This is actual coal Not anthracite. Anthracite burns clean, but it doesn't have the right heat. It works good in a furnace, in a boiler. But this stuff, bituminous coal, works good for blacksmithing. And some people call it plain smitty coal.
Where do they used to get it, and where do you get it now?
Well, they're basically the same place. Since there weren't many coal mines in Maine, it would have to be shipped up from Pennsylvania. This is where this stuff is from. It's from Pennsylvania or Kentucky. They got good veins over there. The veins go all the way through into Ontario and western Quebec. So you could get some there as well.
Now, back when this was really going on at the turn of the century, or really even from the 1840s on, the blacksmith guy had to be one of the most important guys in camp. Is there really high social status for you?
Yes, actually, when the blacksmith would not be here full time. There wouldn't be a full-time blacksmith. He would travel from camp to camp, be an itinerant. But when he came in, he got a good room. He didn't sleep in the stable. He got a good room at the bunkhouse. He got a good bed. He'd be paid well. And but the food was the same as the others. And the food back in those days, people may not believe this, but the best cooks in Maine were at logging camps. Reason being that if you had the reputation of having a really good cook, they'd be willing to tolerate a really poor boss.
The obvious question that's been tickling the back of my mind ever since I walked up here was, how does somebody who works over fire have a beard that long?
All right. Good question.
It was longer.
There are two reasons. Number one, for self-preservation, you know that you have to stand back. Otherwise, it will get gone.
When you still smell something burning, step back.
Away. Number two, it actually does protect from the heat. Otherwise, my neck would be red, it would be burnt, my face would be burnt. The beard actually holds in air just like insulation does. Don't believe me, huh?
No, I do believe you. Now, if you were an itinerant blacksmith going around to all these camps, presumably when you showed up, there was a lot of work waiting for you.
Yes. The man could be at the same camp between 3 days to a week, depending on how many horses, how many broken tools. You wouldn't fix saws because a saw that's broken is very difficult to weld, but say an axe would lose its weld, or another piece of equipment, a peavey would get the dog would get straightened out. You gotta have a bend to that, and a right bend. Blacksmith would take that, 10 minutes later, bing bang boom, she's done.
And there must be an awful lot of horses and horseshoeing.
Horseshoes, he'd be busy with horses all day. Now here's a little something though. Everybody seems to think a blacksmith takes care of horseshoes. Blacksmith makes horseshoes. A farrier takes care of the horse's hooves and installs the shoes. Now it just so happens that you can make a blacksmith, a farrier out of a blacksmith, but you can't make a blacksmith out of a farrier. Blacksmith covered both ends in North America. In Europe, you'd have a blacksmith handing the shoe to a farrier would install. In North America, didn't have enough people to make that necessary, and further north you went, the worse it got, so you ended up with a blacksmith farrier.
Now, did you actually have to make these shoes, or would you just repair them?
No, you'd make shoes.
So where did the metal come from? Was it waiting for you when you got here, or did you bring it?
Nope, you'd bring them.
Woo! It's a lot of weight.
A lot of weight, but unless of course they would buy the shoes beforehand. What would usually happen, the itinerant blacksmith would, during the summer months, remember, logging camps closed in the spring. People forget that part. They'd work all winter, then they'd take off on the log drive, and the logging camps were closed all summer. Blacksmith would be making shoes all summer, all the way to the fall. Be shipping them with the crews as they would go up. But he would bring some every time he'd come back. So he'd be bringing a lot of weight. Blacksmith would come with a sleigh well loaded with 2 big horses.
That's Guy Landry, blacksmith extraordinaire. We're on the Allagash commemorating the 50th anniversary of the Wilderness Waterway and reliving much of the history of this region. We're way up on Churchill Lake at a place that was once called Churchill Depot. Churchill Dam is here now, and it controls the flow of water through much of the Allagash downstream of the big lakes. In the early 1900s, it was the base of operations for a Canadian lumberman named LaCroix. It was a big operation, and at one time he owned 6 Lombard log haulers. That's because in this particular spot, you could float logs north along the Allagash to mills along the St. John River, or you could haul them a short distance and float them south to the mills in Millinocket. Saw logs went north, pulpwood went south. If you don't know what a Lombard is, you're missing a big piece of history. There are only about 18 of them still in existence, and we'll talk to a guy who owns 6 of them. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. It's the 50th anniversary of the Allagash Wilderness Waterway. 2 celebrations are planned, but one has already happened. I'm at the one that occurred July 23rd up here at Churchill Dam, right at the beginning of Chase Rapids. Still to come on this show, we'll actually watch biologists trap some fish in the fishway at the dam and find out how they're managing the river fishery. And we'll watch the Maine Forest Service helicopter pick up and drop water out of Churchill Lake. But right now, let's get back to that Lombard log hauler we heard earlier in the show. These antiques were behemoths in their day, able to pull many tons of logs at once, pretty much replacing teams of horses. First ones ran on steam, later ones ran on gas, and one of them is right here. Ray Breton and his brother are from North Vassalboro, and they own a bunch of them, maybe a third of the remaining Lombards in the world.
So I've seen these before on YouTube videos. I've seen the one that's in Bradley at Leonard's Mills, which is a whole lot different than this Lombard.
Yeah.
So I thought I knew them, and now I don't think I do. Apparently, there's a lot of variation in Lombards.
Yeah, they made a lot of variations. Like the one we have here is about a 1934 gas job, and the one down Leonard's Mill is a steamer, which is about a 20-ton. This is a 10-ton. And we have 5 others. Well, we have a total of 5 gas jobs, and they're all different. We have some with a dump body on them. They're like 6-ton, which are they're lighter trucks, tractors. And we have some that with the skis. We got them with rubber tires, the track assemblies. None of them are alike. So you got them with bogey wheels and a small chain that will follows your track, and some just go around the shoe. So if you find parts and pieces, think you can use it on your tractor, it doesn't work. It's always like, that's a different type of setup. So we're finding everything if we're missing it, we have to make it from scratch. Make the patterns and then have them cast and machine them.
When did they start making them? When did they finish?
1901, I believe, was the first one,
yeah.
And they finished about 1934, 35 is when they went out of business,
So that was a really fairly short period of time.
Yeah, about 40 years.
With a lot of technology changes, because they went from steam to gas and even diesel. Did they do any diesel?
At the very end, there's a picture of one diesel, but nobody knows what happened to it. So we don't have one, but it's like all the ones we got are gas, and we do have a steamer, but it's all apart right now.
So what year was this one first built?
This was about 1934.
So towards the end, only about 6 years left.
Yeah, tail end.
So this one happens, is this more or less the original configuration?
Yeah.
Or have you done anything to it?
No, this is what they look like.
Okay. So in that vintage, they did have wheels up front?
In the summertime, they would put the wheels. In the winter, they could put the skis.
They always had the tracks in the back.
Okay. They did make various width and different length according to what their needs were. He customized each tractor. That's why they're so different. Some had big bodies on them to have the weight up on top and lugging supplies. There was even one made for a dog show. It had only one set of tracks in the center.
No, really?
Yeah, 2 wheels to the front, one set of tracks in the middle, and it was hauling a whole, like circus wagons, for a dog show.
Yep. Now, this one has a hand crank in front. That's not to start the engine, is it?
It does an electric start, but you could do it.
You could, okay.
Yeah, yeah. if you have enough arm power.
Yeah. That's what you need several guys for.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in the dead of winter, I could see a battery in 1930 going a little cold on you, and you'd have to start manually.
Oh yeah.
Now, the original Lombards really didn't even have brakes. Does this one?
No, this one does. Yeah,
Okay.
these had brakes. They're not much of brakes, but if you have the load, that an average load is 300 ton behind that you're pulling. If you're going downhill, your brakes ain't going to do you any good anyways. The load will push you ahead. So the thing is to stay on line and stay on track.
Now, this has gears.
Yes.
Did the original Lombards, the steam ones, have gears? Or
Oh yeah. Well, the steamer, they weren't like this is a 3-speed here, and we have some that are 5-speed, and with a high and low. So again, there's nothing the same. They're all made, for custom for somebody, or they just were trying something different.
Well, Lombard kept doing different things.
Yes.
Along the way, he must have made some mistakes. He must have said to himself, well, I guess that didn't work.
Some work better than others,
Yeah.
and I think that's why there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
That we find parts and pieces, and they're not interchangeable.
Yeah. What's noteworthy about some of the things that didn't work? Are you aware of any?
No.
All right, well, on this one, what doesn't work very well?
He was born 100 years before me, so I haven't met him.
Yeah.
But I've been working with these since about 1974.
How did you get started? I mean, this is not something you accidentally get into.
In high school, I mean, we had a camp up in the North Woods, and it used to be the office to a sawmill in that area, and alongside the camp were some skis for the sleds, and so I brought him back home to just to put them all back together, replace all the wood, and they were a nice set of sleds. At that time, Waterville was looking at picking up the Lombards that were up where we are here today at Churchill Dam, and do a 1976 bicentennial project. The high school was going to rebuild them. Well, there was 3 tractors up here. The Augusta Museum got one, and the other 2 went to Waterville, and they wanted my sleds because they had the tractor, but no, I'm keeping my sleds, and we're looking for a tractor. So they came back because they had them all apart, but they never got them together, so they asked us if we would put them together, at least one for show. They knew it wasn't going to run. It was missing too many parts. Yeah. And so
how do these even come into somebody's possession? Because there can't be that many that are...
There isn't.
No.
216 gas jobs are made, best of our knowledge, and about 83 steamers. And out of all of them, out of the 40-year production line, you can probably account for about 15 to 18, and that's it. Most of them were scrapped.
And you've got how many?
We have 5 gas jobs and 1 steamer.
Yeah, so you got like a third of them.
We the largest collection of them.
Yeah. So how is it you came to collect them then?
Well, it started off with looking for one, and we got the leftovers that Waterville ended up not using.
Yeah.
And we just kept an eye on parts and pieces. Harry Crooker had some junk. They were in his scrapyard, and so we ended up getting 2 frames there and some of the inner sides, and then parts and pieces here and there, and other Starbuck Lumber had one,
We keep talking about Waterville, but am I right? That's where they were originally made?
Yes,
It was
right where the
Waterville.
Kai's Fiber Plant.
Yeah, okay.
Hudamaki.
Good. Yeah.
Yep. The one of the buildings is still there, the original building.
Yeah. So you don't really drag much stuff with this anymore, but it does move. What do you do with it?
Just do shows throughout the state.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't mind going different places. We just can't transport them. We don't have the heavy equipment.
Yeah.
So whether it's a museum, a fundraiser, a fairground, if they want them there as draws in the crowd, they'll find the transportation for them, and we'll go with them. We don't mind. We don't like static display. We like to run them and show people what they sound like, what they look like. And there's very few of these left.
Yeah.
These are the only gas jobs that run in the state.
What's it take to start one up?
A key.
Yeah, is that all day? Because you wonder something that old. I mean, does it get finicky?
Yes. On the way up, the roads here are really rough, and the fuel tank and the line. I mean, this is old, and I'm sure this tractor got shaken up pretty good. So they had a hard time yesterday starting it, and it ends up, the junk in the gas, and then the tank got into the your filter and plugged it up, so it wouldn't run but 5 minutes in install. And when we got here, it ran like 5 minutes install. So that's why I bring my van, all my tools. We took the pipeline, the oil line, the gas lines out, and the carburetor screens, and we cleaned it all out. And I said, that'll make a big difference. And it did. Now it runs.
I've noticed that you've got all this engine in front of you, big tires. You must not have really good visibility of what's directly in front of you.
No, you don't. I have to stand up to see over the hood if there's anybody, especially where we're at.
Driving around kids must scare you to death.
It does. It does. That's the first thing. I always look before I roll. I look at somebody if it's okay to roll, and then I look way ahead to make sure you can't see on the other side of you. It's blind.
Yeah.
So you got to look way ahead and make sure no one's in your line of your travel.
Well, historically, when you have that bad visibility and the original ones didn't have brakes, and besides you're hauling something that heavy behind you, how dangerous was it running one of these things in the woods?
The steamers were way more dangerous than this. I believe I've heard that 9 people got killed with the steamers because they were a lot harder to steer, and going downhill they lost control. They would jackknife, and the guys in the front would get tossed out, crushed, or something. Yeah. And I heard 9 was like the number that people lost their lives with those.
Yeah.
If you didn't have an explosion, steam boilers.
Yeah, it was probably safer than the crew doing a logjam, though.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
Ray Breton and his brother Paul have been restoring Lombard since Ray was a kid. This one will be up at the Allagash celebration on August 20th as Maine continues to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Allagash Wilderness Waterway. Up next, what are the fish doing in the Allagash? What are the fisheries biologists doing about what the fish are doing? And what happens when you stand under the Maine Forest Service helicopter just as it dumps hundreds of gallons of water? This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. We are way up north today. It's the 50th anniversary of the Allagash Wilderness Waterway, and I'm taking in all the exhibits and demonstrations happening at the July 23rd celebration at Churchill Dam on the Allagash. If you don't know how far in the woods that is, dig out your Delorme's Maine Atlas and follow the river from Chamberlain Lake north of Baxter State Park through several lakes until it really starts to look like a whitewater river. It happens right there at Chase Rapids, just below this famous dam. This dam also has a fishway, and one of the demonstrations is about fisheries management. The fishway has a trap that gives biologists a chance to examine what's using it, and I just happen to be standing next to one of those biologists from the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife.
I'm Frank Frost with the Maine Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. I'm the regional biologist, and there's 2 guys down here in the fishway. On the left is Derek Cody and Jeremiah Wood, both biologists out of Ashland. And we also have a retired biologist here behind me, Paul Johnson, who's worked how many years? 30 plus years? 35. 35 years out of the Greenville office. So he managed Chamberlain and Allagash and the upper waterway, T-Loss. So he's well aware of the waterway issues. So I guess the couple of points that I wanted to make today is that the waterway is an absolute treasure for Maine and the country. It's got excellent fisheries for wild brook trout, wild lake trout, and whitefish. So we, as a department, we regulate the fisheries. We set the regulations and any stocking that we do, and we use this book. You probably recognize this book here. I would also point out that we've got a really recent report on whitefish, if you're interested in lake whitefish, that Jeremiah Wood. Jeremiah's drawing the fishway down right now. You're here this is a really opportune time because we've been trapping the fishway since early May. And what we do, we have a couple of screens in the fishway. We drain it, and we actually have one guy get down in the fishway, and we bucket all the fish up. And you'll be able to see the guys working up the fish here, right on the fishway. So, if you have any questions, you can. It's kind of informal. What's that?
Once a day?
Twice a week.
Twice a week?
Twice a week we check. Yeah, we check it, drain it. Yeah. We've handled over 400 trout here since early May. And we're probably not going to see trout today because the water's so warm. Yeah.
So what do you think you're going to see? Chubs?
Probably suckers, white sucker. There's probably some minnows. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna. We'll make sure everybody gets a look at the fish that's in there.
What is a fishway?
A fishway is, we got a dam here,
right?
And there's a way for the fish to get through the dam. It's obviously a dam for a reason, to block all the water.
Yeah.
So the fishway is a way for the fish to swim up through. It's almost like a ladder.
Yeah.
And the gradient goes up, and then they exit right there at that gate that we just closed, and they go upstream.
I see.
So
And I overheard you say something about every 2 weeks or something. You
twice a
collect
week,
them?
twice a week that we go down, and we have it blocked off.
I see.
Yep, we go down, collect all the fish that are in the hole right down here in this pool.
I put 10 gallons of water and then 4 milliliters of a sleeping potion, acquiesce, to make them calm down. So we handle them. Takes a couple of minutes to slow them down.
So here's what's happening. 2 biologists are down in the fishway. The trap is closed, and it looks like they've got 4 fish trapped in there. They reach down with a net and scoop them into a tub. They put a chemical into the tub that makes the fish sleepy, easier to handle. One by one, the fish are lifted out, measured for length, they're weighed, and a tip of the tail fin is cut off so they will know later if they've ever caught this fish before.
We snip a little piece off the corner of the tail so we'll know if we catch him again this summer.
The first one out is the biggest.
That's a white sucker there.
After it's been measured and weighed, a brook trout comes up next. We're actually lucky to get this one because the water temperature is 72 degrees and they're not moving around much in the Allagash right now.
Now the fish are slowing down. There's not a lot of movement back and forth because the water's so warm. This is about as warm as brook trout can handle it. But this spring, Derek can tell you, he's seen sometimes this will be
78 trout is the most we've had in one 10-day. What's the biggest one? 20 inches. The average has been about 11.
The demonstration is over quickly. So back to Frank Frost. What did we just see?
Yeah, we this is one year that we were blocking the fishway and trapping and seeing what's moving through the fishway through Churchill Dam. It's one way for us to monitor the health of the populations of our sport fishes, mostly brook trout. So we compare this to information that we collected 15, 16 years ago, and it gives us a good idea of how the wild trout population is doing.
Mm-hmm. When you say manage, basically what you do is figure out how healthy the population is, and then you set fishing regulations.
That's a big part of it. We set regulations here, and they're pretty conservative regulations here. But we also a big part of this is what anglers really want. And if the anglers coming out in this part of the region are looking for wild trout, and they're looking for high catch rates and bigger fish, so the regulations are tailored to that, and we make changes over time based on what we're seeing in the fishway like this. Krill surveys in the wintertime. So there's a number of ways for us to monitor the populations.
Typically when you're doing this fishway and pulling out fish, what is the typical size?
Typical size is right around 10 to 11 inches, and it varies from 4. We've gotten trout in the fishway this summer up to 20 inches. But we've handled a fair number of fish that are 14 to 16, which are excellent sizes to catch. So we're seeing a range of juveniles right up through adults, which is really good. Population right now looks extremely good.
Once we get into this time of year, the water gets warm, things aren't moving much.
Yeah. This is a tough time to be checking the fishway because, as you saw, we only have 1 trout. We've had times when there's been 60 to 70, 80 trout in here, so we've handled that many in a single day.
What's the goal? To get fish down the river, up the river, or both ways?
Mainly a fishway is to get fish past the dam and upstream, up over the dam. So
is it a spawning thing? Why do they want to go there?
Yeah, I think what it is fish drop down in the fall to spawn. They spend most of the winter in the river down below, and then they're just passing back up through to get back up to the lake where and then there's juvenile fish here too that are just trying to complete their life cycle. They're just coming up into it's probably a feeding thing. They're getting up into the lake where there's more food, and so we're seeing a mix of wild. We've seen a mix of juvenile and adult fish.
Any trends you see now that you've been doing this a little while?
Well, I think we're up. Our trout numbers are up. The size of the trout are up this year compared to 15 years ago. So it looks very positive.
Well, get back at them then.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Bob.
As soon as the fish demonstration ends, the Maine Forest Service helicopter is in the air. Churchill Dam is lined with spectators to watch this. The line of people stretches several hundred yards along the dam. I'm right on the west side of the dam. On the first pass, I'm too close. The chopper comes in with a bucket and scoops up the first huge load of water, and the prop wash blows my hat off, blows my headphones off, nearly rips the microphone out of my hand. But the pilot then circles around just above the crowd and releases the load just over the east side of the dam. Everybody over there gets soaked. On the next pass, the pilot picks up water a little further out in Churchill Lake so that I'm not clobbered by the breeze. The pilot once again circles around and this time drops his load into the river behind the dam. Maybe one or two fly fishermen get a little damp back there, but it's a hot day and nobody seems to be complaining. Then it's the third round. The pilot once again goes a little further into the lake so that the prop wash isn't blowing people away. He circles around and goes right over those poor slobs across the east side of the dam. But he doesn't release the water. He continues over the dam towards the west side of the dam, the side that I'm on. Ow! Son of a... soaked to the bone. My microphone is wet, my recorder is wet, my camera is wet. This show is over. That's it from the Allagash. Hopefully everything will be dried out in time for next week's show. So long from the 50th anniversary of the Allagash Wilderness Waterway at Churchill Dam. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine returns next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 8. And it's always online at 929theticket.com. Brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Doors Equipment, Bar Harbor Whale Watch, Napa Auto Parts, EBS, and a Supercuts location near you. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.